When your heroes go up in a puff and there's not enough to hang on to, and the ones you would count on to call, they all fall down all around you, then you've got to believe there's more. It is the reason we're put here for. There's just you and I. You and I. When the legend's over.
Hey folks, this is the man with the pinky ring and the New York thing. Forget about it, Bad Brad Berkwitt. And you're watching the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report Web TV channel. Now make sure you hit that button and subscribe. Leave your comments below. Love to have a conversation with the viewers. Now, hey folks, I told you after a long hiatus that we're going to bring you back big names. And we started out recently with Marielle Trump. Well, tonight I have a Grammy Award winning singer who was also Oscar nominated. As well, she also acts. She's the very talented and the legendary Melissa Manchester. All right. Well, first of all, welcome to the show. It's an honor to be interviewing you.
Thank you very much.
I got to tell you that the minute I released, well, even before the press release, when I told Debbie, who's my better half, I had her see her pick up a thing like she had a microphone and she was singing, "You Should Hear How She Talks About You." As soon as I said your name, I've been getting, in the last week, I've been getting clips from when you run, I think, Midnight Special, doing Midnight Blue.
Yeah.
Everybody's sending me their favorite clip because when we put the press, this is my favorite song. That's my favorite song. You got a lot of fans and they adore you. And I want you to know that.
Thank you very much.
I grew up on your music, and I can't say enough great things about it. Honestly, it's an absolute honor to be talking to you today.
Oh, thank you very much, Brad. I appreciate it.
We're going to run the gamut. I may ask you a question that you never asked before, maybe you were, but it's all about you tonight. I want to get your story out for my viewers. So
Sure.
let's, as I always say, let's make some magic.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. I'm going to start present day. I want to talk about your new, I say album. I know it's a CD. I'm kind of dating myself here, but
No, it's an
talk
album.
about that.
It's always an album. It's always an album.
It's always an album. Thank you very much. And then we're going to go back. But this is, if I have my information right, this is your 24th album, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's called Review.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the first release was Just You and I.
Yes.
That you co-wrote with Carol Bayer Sager.
Yes.
Okay. Which originally came out in the 70s, if I
Correct.
remember. Okay. Beautiful song. I saw the video. Can't commend you enough. You know, I recently interviewed Marielle Trump, and as I told her, I'm always touched by when people use their platform because it's not required, and sometimes it's not the most popular thing to use your platform to talk about different things, to show different things. But in your video, you had people, it opens up, folks, if you haven't seen it, and we'll be talking about it with Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., and if I remember, is it Robert Kennedy? Or John Kennedy? John Kennedy. Mm-hmm. John Kennedy. You have pictures of people dealing with COVID in the hospital, in the emergency rooms. And the most, they're all very touching images, but the one that really got to me was the little African-American boy that was holding up a sign that said, where was my note about that? I matter.
That's right.
Very, very touching. You're a mensch. You're a true mensch. And if you don't know what that means, folks, look that word up as Yiddish.
Well, thank you very much. I really wanted to salute the first responders. The thing that's really interesting to me, the whole point of Review is that it is, though it is a re-recording of my hits, with certain tweaks, certain harmonic tweaks, is that these songs have somehow grown into this moment, which is that was not a plan. I mean, right. It's a miracle. It's a musical miracle, and Just You and I being the initial release of this album seemed to have found its moment to salute the first responders, to salute Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, and the quality of life matters.
Correct.
And it was lovely for this song to be reinterpreted. Plus, because I'm honorary artist in residence at Citrus College here in California, I got a chance to. They have a fantastic music department, and so I not only recorded the song there, but I used their pop band and their singers, their Citrus singers, and that's who you hear playing and singing on this. So it's really lovely.
And you know, I put a note because they're fantastic, and I got a note here that says the Citrus singers are basically world renowned. Attend Citrus College in Citrus College in Glendora, California.
Uh-huh.
I did a little research on it, and they won some type of award, I think, in Austria or Australia somewhere that like nobody else has ever won. So I don't remember what it's off the top of my head, but they're the real deal, and they're fantastic.
They are the real deal. And what's interesting is this is the community college, but their music department and their recording studio is state of the art, and the professors who teach these kids and guide them, many of these professors went to the community college, the same community college, and so they teach them discipline and compassion.
Wow.
And these kids are beautifully trained and really present, and it was a real privilege to work with them.
And you also had, he wasn't in the video, but you had Gerald Albright is also on the track.
Yes, my old beautiful colleague Gerald and I had recorded. He had played on a record of mine, and it's a running joke because neither one of us can remember what it was he played on. So I said, "Okay, buddy, you're playing on this if you have the time." And he showed up, and he was just beautiful.
Okay, now the marketing behind it, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're releasing a single from it every month. Is that how that's working?
That's okay. Exactly right. You know, we're all not only in place, but we're still. And so I just felt that this album needed to be rolled out slowly. The video needed to be shown. The video can be shown is shown on my Facebook page, melissamanchester.com, or my homepage. The song can be downloaded on all the platforms, iTunes and whatever, and YouTube. And I just wanted to take my time rolling this out. Right. I mean, really, who's in a rush?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I'd just, underscore that.
Okay. Folks, I want to give, she's like your everything. She's your tour manager. She's your backup singer. I think she told me for many, many years.
Yes.
So what's Sue's last name?
Sue Holder.
Okay.
Sue and I have been working together for 36 years.
Okay. Who coordinated this interview?
Yes, she has the most understanding husband on the planet.
Take her away from home a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, she coordinated this interview, and I greatly appreciate her help. She's been really, really on the money. I told her, you're my favorite publicist, because a lot of times you get left hanging, and she's been on top of everything, so I can't say enough great things about her. So you're releasing a single every month. So far you've just had you and I come out.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's how many singles on the album CD?
Well, there will be between 8 and 10.
Okay.
We were in the studio recording this.
Okay.
We're pretty close to the end when the shutdown happened.
That's what I was.
So stuff has, there's some stuff that has to be mixed.
Yeah.
Everything has to be mastered.
Gotcha.
Which is what puts the final frosting on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are 2 songs that we have not gotten to yet, so I'm hoping to record them on the far end.
Okay.
So it'll be seamless. Yeah.
So at the very end, when everything we hope gets back to semi-normal, you're going to release the whole CD will come out eventually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the spelling of review is RE:VIEW. So it's in regard to a view.
Okay.
And how the view has changed.
Okay. I want to take you back to the beginning.
Sure.
To the Bronx.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did you like the movie The Bronx Tale? Did you ever see that with Robert De Niro?
I saw it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the Bronx, folks. I know I got a lot of viewers that I always pick up on my accent. I'm not from the Bronx. I'm from upstate. If you listen to Melissa, I'm from Westchester County, where we said the trees are. but it's not that far from the Bronx. Or Co-op City is not that far from where I live. People research Co-op City, folks.
Sure.
Okay. Now you know what I'm talking about. Um,
Funny.
being born, your father was, and am I saying this right? A bassonist? Is that how you say it?
Bassoonist.
Bassoonist. Okay. With the
An instrument.
Metropolitan Opera. Is that correct?
Yeah. For almost 30 years, yeah.
Okay. And your mom was into design. Is that true?
She was a pioneer in the fashion industry. She was one of the first women to own her own design and manufacturing firm.
Okay, that's too cool. Worked in the garment district, obviously, I would assume.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Um, with that type of background, growing up when you did in New York at that time, what was it like?
Oh my gosh. Well, in the Bronx, we lived under the L.
Okay.
Yeah. And we lived on the ground floor. So we saw people go to work and come home. And I was lulled to sleep by the sound of the subways stopping at the station right down the street.
Okay.
You would hear that squeak of the train wheels. And because my dad worked at the opera, if he was either going to rehearsals in the afternoon, going to the opera at night to play, or he was home in the afternoon. And because he was one of the few dads that was home, he taught all of the neighborhood kids how to ride a bike.
Wow.
Yeah. And across the street, we didn't have supermarkets yet. There were little mom and pop stores, fruit and vegetable store and a meat market and all that. And everybody knew everybody. And, you really had the mamas and the grandmas leaning out the windows, come home for dinner, or I would have a girlfriend who lived on the 6th floor up the street, and I would yell out, Camille's mother, can Camille come out and play? And that's how we'd make play dates. It's wild. But it was very, and there were no air conditions in the day.
Right.
People would, the neighbors would gather on the stoop and watch the kids play. Sometimes people slept on the fire escapes. Sometimes you would go up on the roof called Tar Beach, where they hung the clothes to dry. And it was really wild. And then I moved down to Manhattan when I was about 10 years old, and that was great too. The thing was, it was a spectacular place to grow up in, because I saw it through my parents' eyes. My mother, who grew up also in the Bronx in real poverty, somehow she was able to create this lens for my sister and I, and my dad too, through which she saw life as beautiful and sparkling and full of potential. And she was a genius at creating adventures for free.
Okay.
Because I'm the daughter of a musician. We never had money, and I never knew we didn't have money, So it was quite a lovely upbringing.
Now, were your parents born here, or grandparents came over, or how did it go?
My father's parents were born here. My mother's parents were born in the old country in Russia.
Okay. Now, at Kiev, by chance?
Near Kiev, yeah.
Okay, that's where my dad's side, obviously my last name is Berkwitt. My dad's side was Jewish, even though I was brought up Catholic. That's a whole nother story. The mother's side was Italian, so I always tell people I like expensive things at a discount, so it covers everything. But they came over from Kiev as well, so I kind of had a feeling that's where my dad's grandparents came over from. Or my dad's father.
Yeah, I have a comment on that. I always thought that the common denominator between Jewish and Italian guilt was equal, but one was tomato based and one was chicken broth.
Well, you know what? Later on, I'm going to ask you a question where we get into talking about your acting. It's going to tie in Italian and Jewish, and I think when you hear the question, you'll be like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. Growing up as well in your house, who were artists that you heard?
Wow. Well, obviously classical composers, because my dad was practicing for the opera all the time. But we listened to Broadway musicals. My mom would get the LPs as soon as the musicals would open on Broadway. I listened to Judy Garland. I listened to Ella Fitzgerald.
Mhm.
Ella actually lit the spark for me because I heard her when I was 5, and I heard her sing this album called Ella Sings Gershwin, and it was
Mhm.
just she and Ellis Larkins playing piano, and it was so breathtaking to this day. I didn't know what she was singing about, but it was a light for me, and I just followed it forever. And then Judy Garland for sure. And then as I got a little older, Barbara Streisand showed up, and nobody had ever sounded like her. But lots of jazz, some Latin music, not really too much rock and roll. But I started to become more, listen to Cousin Brucey and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, Murray Bakay, as I got a little older,
Okay.
but it was just a great variety of styles of music.
You mentioned Judy Garland. I'm curious. My favorite album, the Star Is Born soundtrack. Forget about it. It was fantastic. I mean, just she should have got the Oscar for that movie. That's another story. But did you like the '62 Carnegie Hall album, the live one?
That is the alpha and the omega.
Yeah, yeah. My
That
favorite. My favorite.
that is so it's such an extraordinary
Hmm.
recording that was captured. It's funny, I was talking to my sister about this the other day because we were all in Manhattan when she performed, and nobody thought it was going to be a big deal. It was just another concert. But when you listen to what was achieved, not not only her singing, but the charts
Yes.
and the accompaniment and the in time uh, explosion of these audiences.
Yes.
I mean, it
When
was
she talked,
really thrilling.
and when she was talking about, she had her hair done, and it was like full of, I don't know if it was lacquer or whatever she said, and it came down, and the whole nine. I mean,
Yeah,
it was just fantastic. Yeah, I
it,
love Judy Garland
it
was
was.
uh,
Yeah.
was something else. Out of curiosity, being in New York, and there's so many New York songs that have been recorded. Do you have one that you think captured the true essence? I mean, you got Autumn in New York, you got New York State of Mind, you got New York, New York. Both, is there one New York song that you think really captures the New York itself?
Those are all great examples that you cited. I happen to love Cole Porter's I Happen to Like New York.
Okay.
There is something that unfolds in that song, and I perform it when I'm performing in New York, and I just love his take on a New York that no longer really exists, but there's some something in
Hmm.
the lyric and the way it unfolds that is just really thrilling, and it really brings the audience along. But all of those songs are just spectacular.
Okay. Moving on, and if I pronounce this wrong, correct me. Harpsichord? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Now when I was researching this on you, I got to tell you, when I saw the word, which I did, I had to look it up. Okay, I envisioned in my mind Harpo Marx from the great Marx Brothers playing the harp. Of course, it's not the harp that Harpo played. It's actually, it looks like a piano, but I'm not saying it's a piano per se.
Right. Well, a piano has hammers
Okay,
on the string, and a harpsichord is plucked, so it has a very unique sound that I think it came in the, I don't know, 17th century or
okay.
something. But yes, I played it on the National Lampoon Radio Dinner album, where I
Okay.
also played the part of Yoko Ono, and I
Hmm.
was also the voice of Deteriorata, which was
Okay.
the famous poem Desiderata, which says, "You are a fluke of the universe, and whether you can hear it or not, the universe is laughing behind your back."
Okay. And at 15, is this correct? At 15, you were writing jingles?
I was a jingle singer when I was
Okay, jingle
15.
singer. Okay.
Yes, my late brother-in-law was a jingle writer, and he hired me, and from then I started to have quite a big career singing jingles, and that's where I met Barry Manilow and Patty Austin
Hmm.
and Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson and a whole host of brilliantly talented people, and we made a really good living and learned a lot.
Okay. And this was all in New York City.
It was, yeah.
You didn't by chance work out the Brill building or anything like that, did you?
You know, I missed the Brill Building experience by about 20 minutes. Carol Sager was the last, she was in the last wave of the Brill Building, because the height of the Brill Building, I think, was um, maybe from the 40s, the 30s and 40s to about the early 70s, late 60s.
Okay.
So I missed the Brill Building. But yes, I was a jingle singer, and it allowed me to make a fair amount of money so I could pay for lots of demos,
Okay.
send them to all kinds of record companies, and was summarily rejected for about 7 years before I got a deal.
Okay. Now you mentioned Barry Manilow. The story goes, and you can correct me if it's not accurate. Barry introduced you to the divine Miss M, Bette Midler. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. Yeah, he was her new music director when we were singing together, and it was interesting. She was still on the ascendant. She was still at the beginning of her career. And she had never been a background singer, but she always loved girl groups. And so Manhattan was full of clubs in those days. And Barry and Bette were performing on the Upper West Side at a place called the Continental Bathhouse. It was primarily, it was all gay men.
Yeah.
And I was diagonally across the street at a club called the Focus, and Barry wanted me to meet Bette, and he brought her over on their night off, and I did my set, and she had just been on the Johnny Carson show and tore up the place, and I was introduced to her, and I congratulated her. The thing is, we were always congratulating and supporting each other, all of
Okay.
us who were trying to get record deals or publishing deals or something, because it was hard, it was rigorous, but we just kept going because we were all such a hungry bunch. But anyway, I congratulated Bette on this evening, and I asked her what she was planning on doing next, and she said she was getting ready to do her first Carnegie Hall concert, and I asked her if she was going to have background singers, and she said, I wasn't thinking about it, but would you like to sing in back of me? And I thought to myself, actually, I'd like to sing instead of you, but in the meantime, I'd be happy to. So Manilow and I created the Harlettes, and I was in the middle, and I worked for her for about 6 months, and
Okay.
it was spectacular. Yeah.
You didn't. You weren't on Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, were you?
On that record,
Yeah.
I was on the Divine Miss M record. Yeah, I've
Okay.
done Want to Dance and Going to the Chapel of Love.
Okay. Now you mentioned the gay bats. I was curious, which I knew that from knowing her career pretty well. Did you ever see the movie The Ritz?
The Ritz?
The Ritz,
No.
where Rita Moreno played a lounge singer in the gay bats, and the guy went in there. He was a mafia guy, and he went in there to hide. And she played Googie Gomez. Look it up. It's called in 1976. Ben Stiller's father, Jerry Stiller, was in it, and Rita Moreno was the star of it. Funny, very, very funny. You'll see. I don't want to give it away, but look it up. The Ritz.
Sure, I will.
Okay. In '73, is that when you went in to record your first album?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the first one was released in '74.
Okay. Home to Myself was what it was?
Yes, that was on Bell Records. And
Okay.
prior to that, I had studied songwriting with Paul Simon when I was 17.
Mhm.
And that gave me a great basis for understanding the tools of writing.
Okay. What was the experience like going in recording your first album?
Well, it was thrilling. It was overwhelming. I mean, I had been trying to get a record deal for 7 years with no luck. And then I finally met Hank Medris and Dave Apple, and they became my co-producers. And we recorded in Manhattan with my band and some musicians that they brought in. And it was for Bell Records, which was in that moment primarily a singles label. So I was their first album artist, and so they had the wisdom to leave me alone. And I thought, oh, this is how you make records. You're just left alone.
Right.
And so we recorded, and it was very joyful. And honestly, Larry Utall, who was the president of the record company, he was very kind, and he really did leave me alone. And then I supported the album by doing coffee, college coffee house tours all over New York and Delaware and Connecticut and Jersey, all the colleges, and got a little bit of a following. And that was followed by Bright Eyes. And again, I was getting more of a college following, but then Clive Davis absorbed Bell Records into Arista. And he really showed up with a very large vision. And my first album on Arista was Melissa, and Midnight Blue was on.
Midnight Blue. We're going to the next question. Go ahead. Shoot.
Yeah, and we did a very rigorous national radio tour where my tour manager and I, and sometimes with my band, went to every primary, secondary, or college radio station all across the country in hopes to get it placed. And this was, Midnight Blue was right before radio changed to computerized programming. It was still really disc jockey oriented.
But if I remember correctly, it was AM radio, it was played on AM radio quite a bit. I know FM was around, but AM was really more popular. And then, of course, FM took over. But AM radio was like, you were big on that. I mean, really, really big. They played a lot all the time.
Yeah, it was really something. And once Midnight Blue hit, everything changed. Audiences really knew the music by the opening vamp, and it was really, really amazing.
Okay. 7th studio album in 78 is Don't Cry Out Loud. I've had more people sing this badly to me in the last week, I must tell you. For everybody that's watching, I won't call you out by name, folks, but you know who you are. I've left messages of them singing it. I said, please let her sing it. She's paid to sing it. But I'm glad that she appreciates the song. But even my boxing buddy who sends me the birthdays to post up the fighters every day, he sends me a thing. Don't forget, you got to, of course I'm going to talk about this. But Don't Cry Out Loud. I mean, it's a massive, massive, massive hit.
It's a remarkable. It was a remarkable song. I had written with Carol Sager almost every day for years. And I knew that as soon as I left her little apartment, Peter Allen would come in, or Bruce Roberts, any number of other wonderful collaborators. And I had heard this song recorded by Peter Allen because they wrote it together, Carol and Peter. And I had heard a very quiet version of Peter singing it, and I thought, this song is spectacular. And I know there's a small cadre of people who are convinced that they are the ones that brought the song to Clive Davis. But I brought it to him as well. And I always heard it as a very quiet version. And in those days, I don't recall that I was ever consulted with arrangements unless it was a song that I had written.
Okay.
And I walked into the studio and there was this gigantic arrangement of Don't Cry Out Loud. And it just so frazzled me because it wasn't what was in my head. And so the performance that you hear on that record is one of deep frustration, and it worked. And it took me a while to get comfortable with understanding why the song was connecting with people, because everything that Carol Sager and I wrote about as younger women was about affirmation and self-worth and speaking out loud and finding our voice. And suddenly I've got a big hit where the first word in the title is don't. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to get used to this. Why are people connecting with this?
Right.
And it took me years actually to understand that the heart of the song, the truth of the song at its core, is about learning how to cope, which is what we all must learn how to do no matter what.
Okay. For the younger viewers, this isn't a question, but I know who Peter Allen is. But tell them, for the viewers that don't know, who is Peter Allen?
Peter Allen was an Australian composer and performer extraordinaire. He wrote I Honestly Love You for Olivia Newton-John. And as I said, he co-wrote Don't Cry Out Loud. He died too young from AIDS, but he was a dear and magnificent friend.
Okay, rest in peace. 1979. Now, I remember this movie. I was 11 years old. And I went to the movie theater when it was only about $1.35. I lived in Florida at this time on Miami Beach. Yeah,
Yes.
let me go see it. Robbie Benson, if you guys don't know who Robbie Benson is, one time Robbie Benson during my generation was a big star. I know you don't hear of him much today, but he was in a movie called Ice Castles.
Right.
Had beautiful song, Through the Eyes of Love.
Exactly.
Also had a song with Kathleen Quinlan and Stephen Collins in the movie called The Promise, and it was I'll Never Say Goodbye.
Right.
And he did something that, to that time, and I'm going to ask you two questions on this, to that time had never been done before. You were up for 2 songs for Best Oscar, and you also, from the research, you performed both of those at the Oscars as well?
Yes, I was the first artist to do that on the Oscars. Yes.
Okay. In all of my research, I don't see that. Now, I know Randy Newman, as a songwriter and maybe a singer, was up for maybe more than 1 or 2, but it was a songwriter. You were up as a singer, right? Is that correct? Has anybody broken that record that you know of?
I don't know. I don't know, but it was a thrilling moment for sure.
Absolutely. So what was it like performing both of those at the Oscars?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was in my first Bob Mackie gown, and I was wearing very high heels, and the director thought it'd be a really good idea if I walked down 2 flights of stairs in my very high heels without a banister. so so I lived to tell a tale, but it was so thrilling because I was singing with a big orchestra, these 2 beautiful compositions, and I was just filled with such adrenaline and gratitude for seeing the outcome of these songs. You know, the thing is, in that day, these songwriters were my friends.
Mhm.
And so Marilyn and Alan Bergman called me and said, "Would you sing this song?" Sure. Is there lunch involved? Yes, you know. And then Carol Sager and Marvin Hamlish said, "Would you sing the song?" Sure. Can I bring my band? Yeah. And they played on it. And these were just afternoons that turned into Better Than the Dream.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Do you remember who hosted that year? Who the host was for the Oscars that year?
Well,
I don't remember.
it was Johnny Carson.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was John. Oh, okay. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about him later, about a performance you had, Johnny Carson. That just
Yeah.
okay. 1982, 10th studio album. Hey Ricky. You got the pop hit. You should hear how she talks about you. Now, like I said, when Debbie heard I was doing this, I had to watch her walk around. I'm going to get thrown out the bedroom tonight, but she attempted to sing this song, but she did look very cute trying to do it. So I remember this song because at that time I lived in North Miami Beach, Florida, and it was on FM radio, like every other song it was played.
Yes.
In research, I didn't find, did you do an MTV video or a VH1 video for it? Because I couldn't find it. I found performances, but never an actual video.
Correct. No, I didn't do a VHS video for this. This was just a collection of performances.
Okay.
For my use. Yeah.
Okay. When you recorded it, did you, I know it's probably a tough question, but did you feel it in your bones, or did you have an idea that was going to go on to be, first of all, win your Grammy?
You know, it was, well, the thing was, the shift in the music industry was happening in that moment. Up to that moment, I was mostly known as a balladeer. And around 80, 81, 82, disco was really kicking really hard. And so the record company wanted me to be part of that moment. And I mean, I wasn't going to write anything. And luckily, my dear friends who are extremely talented, Dean Pitchford and Tom Snow, who have written great songs, they presented this song to me. But it took the genius of Arif Mardin, who was the producer.
I remember that, yeah.
He was, I mean, I was so blessed to work with him several times because his musicology, his mastery of music and styles, it was really endless. And he put together You Should Hear, and it was great. And it was an unlikely song for me, but it worked out well because it's a really great record.
Okay.
And yeah, and so it was really fun.
Well, I'm play off of something you just said. It's the next question, but it kind of ties into what you said as a balladeer. Standards, folks. If you don't know what standards are, look that up. But you sung so many, but I don't know if you snuck it in or it was meant to be. But you recorded a standard on an album, one of my favorite by the Gershwin brothers, "Someone to Watch Over Me," which was fantastic. Was that your idea? Or was
Oh
did you
yeah.
sneak it in?
Oh
I
yeah.
figured that.
Yeah. If it's Gershwin, it's my idea.
Because I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
facts, when I was doing my research, and of course I knew that song, but I'm looking down the track, like, wait a second, that's a 180. I got a
Yeah.
feeling because of the type of music you sung that
Well,
you probably pushed that in.
the thing was, I was always trying to find a way to navigate my career where I could start singing those songs, and I would only be able to introduce one at a time, and it was tough, but I could not get a record company to see me as that, although that's how I grew up, of course. But be that as it may, yeah, I did that, and I sang that on my HBO special, which was the second HBO special, called The Music of Melissa Manchester.
Okay.
And that in, I think that was in 1980.
Okay.
And yeah, it was amazing because I got a chance to sing that as well as many other pieces of mine with an orchestra, and it was beautiful.
Okay. I want to ask you a question in your opinion because you're, as what I call when we were in the military, the SME, which is the subject matter expert. SME, that's you. So I've said it before, I'm guilty of it, but I want to be fair because I know the music. I don't know the music industry like you. I don't claim to know it, but what I do know is how, and it's common sense, is how things have changed from going in the studio to YouTube sensations to people not doing what you did at the beginning, struggle for 7 years and work here and work there and apply to. I mean, people think people that don't know Frank Sinatra's, Youth Sinatra, they think like overnight Frank became a success. That's not how it happened. You know that, and I know that. But to be fair to songwriters, and I know you're a songwriter, I don't want to insult you by not giving you an opportunity to answer in your own words, your thoughts. The music industry has changed, and I don't want to insult songwriters because there may be songs being written, and it might be I don't want to say the studios or the companies that don't want someone to watch over me, Moonlight in Vermont. I'm just pulling stuff out of my head. Beautiful Standards, The Good Life, songs like that. But in fairness to the writers, are writers still writing these type of songs with these beautiful lyrics, or do we have I know there's probably never going to be the Gershwins and the Porters and the I mean, that was a magical time. But in fairness to songwriters out there, because I know there's some good ones out there, and I'm sure you've written some stuff too that, and I don't know this to be a fact, I'm sure you've written some good stuff, but the studio may say, don't want that, that's not what we want, this is not what they're listening to. Is it songwriters aren't getting their songs published that are written with some beautiful lyrics, or is it companies that are saying, we just don't want this, this is not what we want anymore?
Well, first of all, there are very few companies left.
Okay.
And the truth is that the nature of the American pop song has fundamentally shifted. The songs that you are citing, Someone to Watch Over Me, Moonlight in Vermont, all of those magnificent masterpieces, those were melody and lyric driven. Songs that exist today are rhythm driven.
Okay.
When you have songs rhythm driven, it's harder to develop long melodic lines, long lyrical lines. It just goes against the nature if you've got a beat going all the time. What happens is because the beat is happening all the time, and because most audiences have, the attention span of a newt. So you take a phrase and you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, as opposed to develop the idea. There are wonderful writers.
And that's why I don't want to be insulting to them, because I think that's the word.
I know there are very inventive people, and now that people are creative, they don't really need record companies, because record companies are essentially a bank with a big engine. But we're in the world of YouTube, where if I show up with a little mic and a flashlight and post something, I can get 1 million hits if I'm lucky. But then But then what separates the men from the boys, so to speak, is what happens when you have to step on a stage. And do you know how to do that? And when I teach, because I really remember what it's like to be 17 and hungry, because I'm many decades later and still hungry. So I have my long shadows, but I know what it took to keep me healthy and sane and make really stupid mistakes like everybody else does because we're so damn hungry that we go, you know,
Mm-hmm.
anything, I'll sign anything. And so so the landscape of the industry is unrecognizable. It is nothing like what it was when I started. And one of the reasons that I recorded Review is because, like many of my colleagues, when we signed record contracts in the late 60s, 70s, mid 80s, nobody at these companies, nobody could imagine the revenue streams that exist today. There was no social media, there were no platforms, there was no licensing. This was science fiction.
Right.
And so they owned all of the masters. Records are called
Mm-hmm.
masters, that recorded device. And so the only way we can empower ourselves to own our masters is to re-record our hits. And many of my colleagues, that's exactly what they're doing.
Okay.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting. It's the landscape, and that's why I wanted to ask that question, because I wanted to be fair, because I have said, you know, Frank at the end of his career, when I saw him in '94, he retired at the end of that year. He would say, "There's no good songs written anymore." And you know, as you get older and you reflect, I used to feel like that too, because I'm so used to songs like "Don't Cry Out Loud," where the lyrics were just, you know, you go back to the Temptations, "My Girl," and stuff like that. The words were just, I mean, if you sing a love song to somebody, you know, it was a love song. Today, not so much.
Yes, that's exactly right. And if you listen to Smokey Robinson, if you listen to Motown, those songs are so spectacular. Those lyrics are so rich, and the images are unbelievable. I mean, it's really thoughtful writing because, you know, I really think that I and people of my generation, we were sort of the bridge, what I call the bridge generation,
Mm-hmm.
because we grew up on great song stylists like Sinatra and Tony Bennett and everybody, and Broadway music, which often became pop music. And then, you know, then in the late 60s, early 70s, there was that new wave of singer-songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
In the earlier version, it would have been strictly folk music, like in the 40s and early 50s. And then pop music started to incorporate the singer-songwriter. So in the beginning, you know, with the Beatles and Joni Mitchell and Laura Nyro and Sly and the Family Stone and James Taylor and Stevie Wonder, they were still writing beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful songs, even if they were anthems.
Mm-hmm.
They were just filled with melody and the exploration of lyrics. And then they just kept morphing.
Mm-hmm.
They just kept morphing. And but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You know, what I do believe, however, I believe in my heart that the listener comes back to melody. I believe that the listener, even if they're 13 years old, I mean, every 10-year-old knows the Beatles. How is that possible?
Yeah.
And these are great songs.
Yes.
You know, it's something in the ether. So that gives me hope.
Okay.
So at least they recognize what a song form is, what you know, popular song music.
I'd say you talk about the Beatles. I've said this. I mean, I know they're legendary, but I don't think. Well, maybe they do now, but I don't think for a long time they didn't get enough credit for their songwriting. They wrote. I mean, I know that they were huge. They came to America, all that stuff. That's great. But they wrote some. I mean, Yesterday, something. I mean,
oh my God,
on and on.
You bet.
Beautiful, beautiful songs. Doing research, which is my favorite part of interviews. Your 13th studio album, "Knock Me on My Tookus," tribute, because you did a cover of a lady that I grew up on way before my time, but my father, God rest his soul, was 40 years my senior. He was born in 1928. I was born in 68. And one of his favorite singers of all time was Edith Piaf. He stood at the Fontainebleau Hotel with his best friend Billy. They worked in a room called the La Ronde room. And they stood when Edith Piaf came. And if you don't know about the Fontainebleau back in the 50s, everybody came there. Sinatra, they all performed. And they stood in the wings and watched Edith Piaf in her little, 4'11", 4'10", black dress, the little thing. And my dad said they were in tears.
Right.
You did La Vie en Rose. And I'm telling you, you knocked me on my tuchus. I mean, that cover of that song was fantastic. But not only was it great on the album, I found a clip, folks, of her on Johnny Carson. You got up and did it. You had the big hair. You looked great that night. You sang it. And I said, I was watching, I said, boy, you're theatrical. Because at the end, you kind of turned your head down. To me, you were feeling it. You were singing that song like I always think when people say Sinatra interpreted the lyric. You interpret that song. And you sang it in French too. And I mean, just nailed it. Edith Piaf, sadly, as we both know, died in 1963, very, very young in her 40s.
Yes.
I know she was smiling. I was smiling.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Tell me about the album and tell me about La Vie en Rose in particular.
Well, I had always wanted to pay tribute to the women on whose shoulders I move forward in life, and I had wanted to work with Peter Matz, the great arranger. Peter had worked with everybody from Judy to Sammy Davis to Sinatra to Johnny Mathis to Streisand to Noel Coward to Marlene Dietrich. I mean, he just worked with everybody. And we met, and I said, just take this journey with me. And we made a long list of songs, and we whittled it down. And you know, his milieu was that gorgeous orchestrated sound, and of course that's where I live. And he did all of those, and it was a great collaboration. But I had always wanted to complete the idea with a tribute to men, and only a couple of years ago I came out with The Fellows, which was the completion of
I have to look that up. Okay.
Yes, and that's a tribute to all of the men.
And did you record, because somebody on Twitter said they loved, did you do Walk On By on the
yeah, that's on tribute.
I'm sure, because somebody came when I put the presser up and they came and said she knocked it out of the park. Well,
thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
And what was it like that night? Was that a special night on Johnny Carson? I mean, you really looked like you were feeling it.
You know, I was blessed enough to be on Carson several times, and that show was, he was uncanny. You know, when you are in the presence of a host, it's usually a host, who has no interest in doing what you do. They simply appreciate what you do. And Johnny loved new talent. He loved creating a platform. He had this spectacular band, Doc Severinsen and Tommy Newton and all those guys. They played whatever you put in front of them so magnificently. And, you know, I just felt appreciated and heard. And when, you know, the big deal was when they invited you onto the panel to talk. That was really big. And
Right.
You know, he and Ed and Freddie DeCordova, they were all great to me.
Okay. Out of all the dates you've ever done, I know you've done a lot of them over the years, was there one off the top of your head where all the stars aligned and everything was just like, everything hit? The band, you, the crowd, everything was just, like I said, everything was aligned. Do you have one that comes off the top of your head?
Oh, I don't know. You know, there have been lots of really extraordinary moments. I'll tell you one that was kind of funny. I was one of the hosts at Live Aid.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which was the mammoth telethon, I guess it was, to raise funds for
It's for AIDS.
Yeah,
1985, I think.
Yeah, there you go. And it was a worldwide televised showing. and I was, you know, and they started giving you 30 minutes. Each person got 30 minutes to be the host. And I was talking to a billion people, by the way. And so I was yakking and giving the stats and reading from the script and all of that. And I had the earpiece in my ear, and I was about to hand it off to somebody, the next host. And apparently the next host was not ready or in the building or something. So I hear the producer going, stretch, stretch. And I said, so I'd like to say hello to my nieces, Emily and Amanda, and everybody I've ever met. And all of you billion people.
That's hilarious. So who was, do you know, remember who the one that was? So you don't want to call him out. You don't remember? It was Ellen John. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. One thing, in your opinion, that has moved forward in the music industry that you think actually is a good thing, what do you think it is today?
Well, I think I sort of think that there's something called the democratization of music. What I was referring to before. If you hold up a mic and a flashlight and you post something, your chance is as good as any to get some traction. I guess that's okay. I'm not sure if that is what has led to the lowering somewhat of the standard of melody writing and lyric writing, because so much of what I hear on certain stations, not all, it sounds like somebody's making a record in their garage and waiting for the pizza delivery.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's fine, but that is what YouTube and all of these platforms have allowed to happen. So I guess that's a good thing. And then, you know, things get shaken out, and but all in all, what I think is that this new normal, because when I teach, I was an adjunct professor at the USC Thornton School for a while, and I was teaching pop writers, and they don't know about publishing companies anymore. They don't know about having advances anymore, and they're, you know, you hold on to their ankles as they leave the room. Please don't sign a stupid contract, but they often do.
Right.
And that's how we all learn. But you hope that they become wiser.
Okay.
And they understand that though, you know, a lawyer, manager, agent, PR person will try to create leverage over you and make you think that you are working for them. The truth is, you're the one with the song.
Mm-hmm.
You are creating what could be an astounding career where everybody will get a piece. So they, in essence, are working for you. And
Okay.
you try to, but it's really hard when you're starting out. It's really hard to hold on to that.
Okay. Talk a little bit about your acting. I was doing my research. I forgot that you were in this movie. It's actually one of my favorite movies. I think it's underrated. It should have done way. If I remember, it might have been up for an Oscar. I can't remember, but it was a fantastic movie. And you actually reunited with Bette Midler for The Boys, 1991. I was actually stationed. It was during the war, and I was stationed over in Sigonella, Sicily during the Gulf War, and it came out, and I saw it. Great movie. James Caan.
Yes.
Hitler. You played Corinne. Was that the name of your character?
Yes, her best friend.
Yep.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
It was great. It was so great. First of all, Mark Riddell was the director, and he was fantastic. He had just directed on Golden Pond with Henry Fonda and Jane Fonda and Katharine Hepburn. And he was great, and working with Bette was so wonderful, and singing with her, learning Hoagie Carmichael's Billy a Dick was so much fun, and it was just a great experience.
Okay. Now this is where I'm going to tie in the Jewish and the Italian.
Okay.
You had a reoccurring role on Blossom.
Yes.
You played Maddie Russo. I'm going to assume that was an Italian role, right?
I guess so.
I mean, that's an Italian name.
That's an Italian name.
So
yes.
when I saw that, I laughed because I'm like, as you know, Abe Vigoda played Tessio in The Godfather. He was Jewish.
Yes.
Who they made an honorary Italian is Jewish and something else, but he's Jewish pretty
Yeah.
much. And Santino Corleone, and
Yes.
he's got more Italian American awards, even though he has to tell them, I'm not Italian. You know.
That's hysterical. I didn't know that. That's fun.
But yeah, so but you played on Blossom. What was that experience like? Because you were on several episodes.
I did several episodes. Yes, I created the character of Maddie Russo, who was Blossom's mother, who left her ex-husband and the kids, which was very, very unusual in that moment on television to portray that kind of a character. And it was the Bill Bixby was the wonderful director that I had the opportunity to work with. He was quite ill at the time, and everybody knew it, but he was still just fantastic and sparkling with ideas. And Mayim Bialik, you know, she was maybe 13 years old, and you just knew, why don't you just direct and produce the whole thing because you're so smart. Right. She was raised so well. She had such composure and so brilliant, and never a tantrum, never forgot a line, nothing.
Wow. And
she really set the tone. And Bernard Hughes played my dad, and he was just a spectacular character actor.
Remember him? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I got a chance to work with all of these kids. Joey Lawrence and Ted Wass played my ex-husband, and it was just a beautiful, unusual experience for me, you know, because the truth is, when you're singing, even if you left meatloaf in the oven, the music is carrying you through. Right. But when you're acting, there's no music, and so you're actually thinking of that meatloaf in the oven. It's not good. It's trouble. Actors aren't supposed to do that, and I don't have enough acting under my belt, I don't think, where I wouldn't be thinking about the meatloaf.
Meatloaf, okay. And we're talking about Meatloaf the food, so not Meatloaf the performer. Okay.
It was great.
You've done singing, you've done songwriting, you've done acting.
Yes.
Which one is the hardest? Which one do you feel was the hardest?
Well, I think acting is the most challenging for me because it's not a muscle that I've used that much.
Okay.
I did some theater as well, and I've written for theater, which I love, but I had done the national tour of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Song and Dance. I took over for Bernadette Peters.
Oh, great. I love her.
Yeah, and that was very rigorous because I was the only one on stage for Act One. I was song. It was a story, but I was song with an English accent. And I was on tour for 6 months. I had a 9-month-old baby, his dad and my parents traveling with us, and doing 8 shows a week. And because I was a star of it, on the day off to travel, which was press day, I had to do all the press. I thought I was going to lose my mind, but it taught me about my reservoirs of strength, and you know, it gave me it introduced me to new tools to stay strong and focused, because I'd never had that kind of exhaustion before. I mean, I'm always exhausted from my tours, but this was particularly
truly verklempt.
Yes.
Okay. People you don't know, but Melissa's sitting in front of at least I can't say with my black bar, is sitting in front of a piano.
Yes.
So we've got one more part of the interview, but I would like to ask you if you'd be willing to either surprise us with the single that's coming out next month from the CD.
Sure.
Because I don't know what it is yet. So sure. I know one's coming in October. That's correct, right?
Sure.
Okay.
You ready?
The floor is yours.
Here we go. Whatever it is, it'll keep till the morning. Haven't we both got better things to do? Midnight blue. Even the simple things become rough. Haven't we had enough
think we can make it one more time if we try, if we try one more time for all the old times, for all of the times you told me you need me. Needing me now is something I could use. Midnight blue, wouldn't you give your hand to a friend? Maybe it's not the end, and I think we can make it one more time. If we try one more time for all the old times. Midnight blue. I think we can make it. Think we can make it. Oh, wouldn't you give your heart to a friend? Think of me as your friend, and I think we can make it one more time. If we try one more time for all the old times, and I think we can make it, yes, one more time. If we try one more time for all of the old, one more time. I think we can make it if we try. I think we can make it if we try. Looks like we're gonna make it, yes. Looks like we're gonna make it, huh? Oh, 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 midnight.
Beautiful. I mean, forget about it. That's my compliment, my little shtick, but forget about it means fantastic. You know, when I'm listening to you sing this song, my Uncle Stan, God rest his soul, when I mentioned the Brill Building, he was a song pusher, then he became a song publisher. He owned a company called Sounds Music in the Brill Building. He rented, Jimmy Dorsey had just died, and his last hit, I think, was So Rare in about 57, 58. He bought his furniture, rented his office, and 6 months in, he had a hit with a song, a rock and roll song in 57 or 58 called When. It was by the Kalin Twins. And Uncle Stan taught me, he said, a good song is a good song is a good song, period. It doesn't change. That, you know, if it was a good song from the start, it's a good song. So in his opinion, that is a good song. It was a good song then, it's a good song now, and it'll live way past both of us, because one thing I give to artists, and you're one of the best, is when we go to wherever we go afterwards, and I hope it's up this way, your music lasts forever. And that's like, you know, my saying is every act of kindness is a little love we leave behind. That's how I close my show. Those songs are love. Those are like your babies. And that song, like I said, it came out all those years ago, and it's still the lyric. That's why I wanted you to answer that question earlier, because I wanted to be fair to songwriters. But you honestly aren't hearing songs today, for the most part, every once in a while you get one. Yes. You're not hearing that type of music. And it's sad, because to me, a song like that can bring you up, can take you to another place, can make you have a memory of something that was in the past. But
Oh, yes.
thank you. Let me ask you this. I don't want to be too pushy. Will you do one more song?
Oh, sure.
Anything you want. I won't even ask. You do one more.
Okay. Well, how about I do a piece of a song?
That's fine.
Please don't let this feeling end. It's everything I am, everything I want to be. I can see what's mine now, finding out what's true. Since I found you, looking through the eyes of love, now I can take my time. I can see my life as it comes up shining, reaching out to touch you. I can feel so much since I found you, looking through the eyes of love.
Never gets old. I've been playing that. I want you to know, doing research for this, Deb goes to bed early because I get up early because she's working from home because of COVID. So when I'm doing my research on you, I go to YouTube and I hit loop. So it just plays it over and over again. I played that song, I swear, about 60 times in the last week. It's cool to perform it. I appreciate that.
Sure.
The last part of the interview, they're fun questions. There's no right or wrong answers, spontaneous answer, whatever you say. Unless you shoot an email and say, I meant to say that, then maybe we can come back. But they're right off the top of your head. Favorite genre of movies?
Oh, black and white, 1940s.
Okay.
Genre? Well, I love musicals, of course.
Okay.
But I was just watching Greer Garson and Mrs. Miniver. I mean,
Great movie.
honestly.
How can
Really?
you love Greer Garson?
Oh my God.
Adore. Do you have a favorite movie? I know that's a tough one. If you don't, name two. If you can't name one.
Right. Two of my favorites is the original Miracle Worker with Anne Bancroft and Patty Duke, and To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, Gregory Peck, great movie. Okay. Favorite actor?
Spencer Tracy.
Oh, okay, great one. Did you like Inherit the Wind?
What's not to like?
Yeah.
I mean,
Captain Courageous, Boys Town, it goes on and on and on. Okay. Favorite actress?
Favorite actress? I think Meryl Streep.
Okay.
By the way, speaking of Spencer Tracy, you may know the story. When he was doing Inherit the Wind, when he was doing the final summation, and Stanley Kramer was the director, and it was breathtaking, and Stanley said, Spencer, could we do this one more time? Something about the lighting was not quite right. And he said, Stanley, it's taken me 40 years to do that take. No.
Exactly. Yeah. I know you noticed, but for film people that don't, when he was making Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, he was actually he was passing away. He was dying during the film. He was sick. And he still was, what a movie that was with him and Katharine Hepburn.
Beyond.
Favorite musical band?
Favorite band? I mean, probably the Beatles.
Okay. Did you ever see the episode when Johnny Carson asked Frank Sinatra, when you want to get romantic, who do you listen to? Because he's crediting Frank with all of that music. So in a romantic setting, who do you put on?
Oh, I think Tony Bennett's Perfectly Frank album.
Great album.
That album, that to me is parallel to Ella's Gershwin album. It is perfection from the beginning to the end.
Great album. Came out about 92. Yeah, 92.
Right.
Fantastic. And it's funny, you keep mentioning Ella Fitzgerald. When I asked Marielle Trump, I said, who was your favorite? And diverse. She said, well, I like songs. So I have songs for different moods. So I said, okay, give me a couple of songs. She picked Ella Fitzgerald, Lady is a Tramp. She said, I love when Ella does Lady is a Tramp. That was her song.
What was she?
What's that?
What was she like?
Mary? She was everything and more.
Tremendous, huh?
She was brutally honest. I didn't want to put you on any spot with politics, but brutally honest, speaks from the heart, very intelligent, very compassionate. What you saw, I did 2 hours with her, believe it or not. I did a 2-hour interview, and people couldn't believe it. They said, "Wow!" I had her laughing. I mean, we ran again. It just wasn't about the uncle. It was about her too, because I like to give everybody a 180 of the person outside of her book and stuff like that. I'll send you the link. But she was just great, and we've talked since then. And she's a class act, and she's up against it. She's up against it. It's not a popular thing what she did, but she did the right thing, and I stand by her. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's fantastic. I mean, kudos to you that you got that interview. That's
right.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have a favorite car? Are you a car person at all?
Favorite car?
Yeah. No.
One that runs.
I was gonna say that. That's the New Yorker. That's the New Yorker. You probably didn't have a car back in the New York days, did you? You didn't even need one.
No. Here's the thing. No, I did not have a car. I think my father had a car for a while. Although I parked cars for a small theater company, but they didn't know that I didn't know how to drive.
Oh no! Look at that, folks. It is a world exclusive.
Nobody asked me.
Somebody's gonna say, "He banged my car up all those years ago."
I know. They said, "You know how to park cars?" I said, "Yes."
That's funny. That's funny. Do you have a hobby?
Do I have a hobby? No. I mean, I love to watch movies. I love to read. I love to go to the theater. All of those things. But I don't know that they're hobbies, actually.
Okay. Favorite noise or sound that you like to hear?
Laughter.
Okay. Least favorite noise or sound?
An unexpected explosion.
Okay. Favorite, being a New Yorker, I can imagine what it is, but I'm not going to say it. Favorite food?
As a New Yorker?
All right. Well, I'm thinking New York. I'm thinking I know what you're probably saying.
As a New Yorker, Gray's hot dogs.
Okay. And where you're at now, is there?
Where I'm at now, sushi.
Sushi. Okay. If you were to hit the lottery tomorrow, the big one, not like, the several $100 million, you hit the lottery, what's your first thing you're going to do?
The first thing I'm going to do is, buy a house. The second thing I'm going to do is set up a foundation and give a portion of it away.
Okay. If you could meet one person from any time in history, who would you like to meet, and what would your first question be for them? Anybody. It could be anybody.
I think I'd like to meet Mozart.
Okay.
And I think my question is, how did the music come through you? Because the manuscripts of Mozart have virtually no corrections. None. So he heard music finished. He heard the symphonies finished. It's uncanny. And I just would be interested in hearing what that's like. I'd also, of course, like to meet George Gershwin.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a favorite vacation destination pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID, Alaska.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Now I've interviewed people for 23 years. That's the first one. Where in Alaska?
Sitka,
Okay.
Alaska.
For hiking, for the fishing, for what part?
Have you ever seen me? I'm not a hiker.
I don't know.
I like to walk. I don't,
Okay. Well, that's fair assumption. You know, Alaska is
you
great.
know, yeah, Sitka was known in the 1800s. It was known as the Paris of the Pacific.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not that big a place, but it's there's just something about it, and
Okay.
it's lovely and beautiful, beautiful.
Okay. We've talked about a lot of things. If you could sum yourself up in one sentence or two sentences as a human being, how would you sum yourself up?
Thank you for that question.
You're welcome.
Before. First, I feel like I am a, a person who is unfolding, that this journey of life, which is life is such a good idea in and of itself, because I have found that what I do with life is unfold. And so my mind awakens, my opinions shift. I can feel what was useful in my youth is I have shed, and wisdom has shown up in certain regards. The second sentence is, I feel deeply in this unprecedented moment that we are given the unique opportunity to be witnesses to an emerging nation, where I pray that the unfinished business gets healed and we can move forward and be better.
Okay. You've done many interviews over the years in your career. Is there one question that nobody has ever asked you, because I know you've been asked so many, that you said, I wish somebody would ask me that question? And if there is, what's the answer?
I don't know. I live my life, and I don't know what that question would be. I've not, I certainly have been on interviews where you think, I don't think this person knows what I do. I certainly have done those.
Right.
But I think by and large, I don't know. But I certainly appreciate this platform and the kinds of questions you've been asking, because you're very interesting, and you're clearly interested in your guests. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you for that. Final question of the interview. If you have one, is there a saying you live your life by?
Oh, gosh, there are many. Wait, let me think. It used to be when I was starting to collect sayings. It used to be that living well is the best revenge.
Sounds
But
like Nacho would say.
yeah, but I think I'm more more tender about life, and one comes to mind that I saw in a magazine, and it touched me as so sweet, that joy is the serious business of heaven. I like
that. I like that one. That's a good one. Message to your fans. I'm an ex-military guy. I did 20 years and 28 days in the Navy. So I'm real big on our troops. If you could, before we close out, a message to your fans, to the troops, to people that's just out there that need a calming voice, what would your parting words be?
I've been very blessed over the decades of my enduring career to be reached out to by many members of the armed forces that one song or another of mine helped them through Vietnam, helped them through Afghanistan. Um, and for that, I am eternally grateful, because I am eternally grateful for what they do for all of us. And to my fans, I thank you for growing with me and reflecting that what I do has value, and that what I do offers you a voice somehow. And I'm grateful.
Well, I thank you for that. The troops thank you for that. Being overseas, I can tell you, listening to things from home always means something, especially in a time of war. So I thank you for that. I thank you for your time tonight. Sheer delight. I knew it was going to be a good interview because I watched clips of you. I told Sue, I said, you're going to put two New Yorkers together. With all the history there.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. This is going to be something special, and I knew it. Thank you for performing. Again, tell the viewers your website too that they can go to.
Yes, melissamanchester.com, and I'm on Facebook and gosh, all kinds of platforms.
Okay, and she's on Twitter too. She's on Twitter,
yeah.
and the album is Review RE : correct?
VIE.
Yep.
Yes.
And she surprised us, but we know what the song is coming out now. Well, it's the 29th, so we released it 2 days, 2 days early. So you know what it's going to be. Again, thank you so much. You're the best. You're the best.
Well. Stay well. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Thanks so
Good
much.
night. Bye-bye. Hey, folks. I told you I was going to bring you big names. Melissa Manchester. Forget about it. Emmy Award winning. Oscar nominated for 2 songs in the same year. Forget about it. What can I tell you? Another magical interview. Another show in the can. Forget about it. Remember, every act of kindness is a little love we leave behind. Bad Brad out.